네, 두 번째 강연 바로 소개해 드리도록 하겠습니다. From Fragmented Markets to Coordinated Financial Infrastructure이라는 주제로 디지털 에셋의 co-founder이자 CEO이신 유발 루즈께서 발표를 진행해 주시겠습니다. Please welcome Mr. Yuval Ruz to the stage with a big round of applause.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to I투데이 and Taigori서치 for organizing this day. Thank you for the minister for the opening remarks, and just a quick update, the game is still 0-0, so hopefully South Korea is going to win by the end of my panel. As we talked about, we're here to talk about coordinated market, but just real quick background. My background is I started my career at Citadel, which is one of the largest hedge funds in the world, and then moved to a trading firm called DRW. But in 2014, I left because I saw an opportunity to change how financial markets work, and we started digital asset. And the question is, a lot of times people are surprised when I say that I started digital asset to create Canton already 12 years ago, and why are we hearing about Canton just today? And my view is that although a lot of people in crypto thought that just publishing a white paper can change the whole global financial system, my view as someone who practiced and actually participated in capital markets was that it's going to take a long time to shift how financial markets operate and behave. And in 2014, we left to start this journey. We actually wrote the white paper for Canton only in 2016, but as you see, we only launched the network in 2024. And the reason is that we believe that in order to run financial markets on chain, there's a lot of features that today don't exist in public chains. So you'll hear a lot of people talk about privacy today. Today, suddenly privacy is cool. In 2016, we already said that privacy is a must. People talk about how to permission assets and control who gets to touch these assets. In 2016, we said that that is a must. So it takes time to build these networks, but as you will see throughout the presentation, I think there was a remark earlier that until the Clarity Act, banks will not be able to use public chains. That is not true. Banks are already using public chains. They are already using Canton today. And we'll talk in a minute why and how. So why is everybody so excited about crypto? And we hear a lot of times people talking about 24/7. The number is incorrect. Crypto market have went down quite significantly since. I think it's about 2.3 trillion. But when we look at the opportunity on the right, this is why people are interested, right? This is just in capital markets, commodities, fixed income. We almost have $1 quadrillion worth of trading a year. In payments, we have 2 quadrillion. For those that don't know, quadrillion is 1,000 trillions. So the numbers that we're going after are significantly higher than where crypto is today. And therefore, I think the opportunity is still extremely exciting and is worth me investing 12 years of my life so far to go after this journey. So what is blockchain trying to solve? So we talk a lot about 24/7, and one of the issues is that today there's a lot of friction. When we talk about securities or bonds or payments, they don't exist on the same rail. So when we want to settle bonds against cash, there's a lot of intermediaries in the middle that have to bring these assets together. And that friction, as you can see on the left-hand side, is estimated at north of $100 billion a year in costs to banks, exchanges, and all kinds of market participants. Now, the problem is, we call them legacy chains. Traditional blockchains have taken the approach that there is no privacy, that everything is permissionless. And we're here in Korea, a country that has grown quite significantly, but since the financial crisis in the 90s, there's very strict FX rules, for example. So this idea that you could just move assets in a permissionless manner doesn't work with Korean regulations, as just one example. This idea that you could just move things in regulated markets in a permissionless manner without privacy just doesn't work. The other component is how do we govern these networks? So if you are going to put some of your significant infrastructure on some of these networks, you as a regulated organization need to have a lot of trust that the way that these networks will govern themselves is something that you can trust. That's why, for example, Korean banks trust the SWIFT network, even though they don't control the network, but they trust the technology because they trust the governance of that network. So when we launched Canton, and we started thinking about it already 10 years ago, our view was that the world is just not the same. The rules that exist in Korea are not going to be the same rules that exist in the US. They're not going to be the same rules that exist in Switzerland, and they're not going to be the same rules that exist in many other countries. And therefore, having one single network that is just going to be fit for everything is not going to work. And the reason for the name Canton, just to give you a bit of an explanation, for those of you who visited in Switzerland, Switzerland have this concept of cantons. So Switzerland is broken from many cantons, and these cantons even are not spelled the same way. Canton with a C is more in the French side of Switzerland, like Geneva. If you go to Zurich, they would spell it with a K. They have different languages, different taxes. Yet when you take a train from Geneva to Zurich, you're still in the same country. So the idea of Canton was to create a global network of networks, that every network can have its own rules, its own sovereignty. So a Korean canton can enforce FX restrictions, can enforce all kinds of privacy rules, but whenever they want to interoperate with the US canton, they could do it as if they existed on one network. You could have configurable privacy, you could set what can people see, what they cannot see, and you don't lose this global connectivity. And that's, to us, was an extremely important features as we were building this global network. So, these composable, so when we think about Canton, the way I kind of try to describe it in a very simple way is if you have composability plus privacy with the right aligned economics, you have effectively the three key components, in our opinion, to build a very successful global blockchain network. And, earlier it was said that, some of these features like privacy, control, are table stakes. Table stakes means if you don't have those as a minimum, you will not be able to get regulated financial institutions to use a public or a blockchain. Then there was a comment that they don't even use public blockchain, so I would venture to say that that is incorrect. These are some of the organizations today that are already using Canton. These are, as you can see, some of the largest financial institutions in the world. DTCC manages 100 trillion in assets and have selected Canton as the first blockchain to put US equities and US treasuries on chain. And we're actually, in July, we'll have the first set of trades, and the system will go into production this October. JPX, the largest exchange in Japan, just announced together with Mizuho and Nomura that they're going to tokenize JGBs, so Japanese sovereign bonds, to actually do collateral management on Canton. LSEG, which is the largest exchange in the UK, is taking tokenized deposits and putting them on Canton. Circle is doing USDC, but you're seeing also some of the largest financial institutions in the world are already using Canton, and we can talk in more detail on some of these use cases. But again, to me, what I'm trying to say, and it's really where I started, is when we started 12 years ago, our view was that there is a very big opportunity. A lot of times when you think about crypto, you think about the narrative of Bitcoin. Crypto will liberate the retail and will get rid of banks and exchanges. And we've seen that that's just didn't happen in crypto, and in my opinion was not necessarily a good promise to make. Because at the end of the day, when we think about our money, we want to use companies that are regulated, that will be held accountable, and do manage our financial assets very securely. We actually thought that the bigger opportunity is how to enable these large institutions to actually manage financial system in a much more efficient, much more fluid way. And as a result of that, we, the consumers, will benefit from having better products. No different that when Apple created Apple Pay, we got a much better product, right? It's not that Apple Pay as a technology was to the end consumer, but the end consumer at the end of the day benefited from having better technology offered by these large organizations. So very similarly, what we think will end up happening is we will see much better products being offered to the retail because these large organizations can run their businesses much more efficiently and much more real time. So what does this mean for Korea, for example? Like just thinking about Korea as a market. So I personally am an investor in the Korean market. I mean, if you think about what is happening in recent years with geopolitical, I think the whole situation between US and China have made the Korean market and the Japanese market extremely attractive markets. So when you look just at Korean manufacturing, Samsung, the whole boom in AI, the defense industry in Korea is creating a massive opportunity in the world. Now again, accessing Korean markets today is not very efficient. It's not as smooth. I mean, there's a few ETFs in the US, but again, the exposure to the Korean market from the outside is not very easy. Also, when you think about Korea as its own standalone market, it is quite a significant market. So when you just think about, for example, the repo market, how banks finance each other in Korea, it is a fairly large market. Yet the settlement of Korean treasuries is not real time. You can't move Korean treasuries in real time. And that's just an example of one very big opportunity. Wholesale settlement, again, moving bank wholesale settlement, and I know the central bank here is thinking about opportunities of how to introduce CBDC. That's another great opportunity. But then, as I said, how do you connect Korea into the global markets more efficiently is just another very large opportunity. So, we've recently, so digital assets have been very active. Just recently we signed a MOU with Hanwha, who actually also participated as an investor. Last week we were announced that we did a very large investment round with Andreessen, and Hanwha participated. But also the foundation signed MOU with KB, with Shinhan, and a few other organizations that you'll see in the coming weeks. So we're very excited about some of the opportunities that exist here in Korea. And then again, just something that is worth thinking about in terms of where is Korea located from just a regional position, not just global position. The opportunity just in Asia is enormous for the Korean market. And again, I think that one of the opportunities that is worth for institutions here in Korea to think about is how do you actually connect yourself more efficiently into the local APAC region. And I think that Korea and Japan will have an unfair advantage as a result of some of the transformations that are happening in your local economies. And again, what we're seeing is, again, on-chain cash. So the idea that a lot of the banks here are thinking about both CBDC, tokenized deposits, and stable coins represents quite a significant opportunity. If you look at some of the structuring of most of the conglomerates here, they all have offices or businesses in Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam, Japan, and therefore there's quite a lot of opportunity on creating much better connectivity locally in the region. Similarly speaking, again, just on the asset side, there's quite a lot of opportunity to bring and tokenizing some of your local assets, whether it's treasuries, securities, to allow better collateral movements across the region. So again, just to recap, I mean, to us, a lot of times when crypto networks have been talking, they have described, let's just put everything on one ledger. And not only that, in my view, there were comments about scaling. Even NASDAQ today does not have one single matching engine. NASDAQ have many matching engines. They have many matching engines, and they can spin more matching engines. And the reason that they do that is because parallelizing is a much more powerful way to scale networks. Even the internet today, when we talk about the internet, although it sounds like a singular word, the internet is not a singular network. It's actually a network of networks, right? When Netflix showed up on the internet, they didn't go to the Internet Foundation and said, hey, internet, can you become bigger? No, they just added more servers to the internet, and they were able to scale the internet. So this idea that we can run the global financial system on a single ledger is just not connected to reality. Physics just doesn't agree with it. So there's many reasons why we want to have a network of networks. One is scalability. One is the ability to have different rules by different jurisdictions and use cases, but the ability to have one single protocol that connects all of these networks to give the same user experience that we get with the internet today. So when you click today on a browser and you go to a website, your browser actually fetches information from many different networks. Your user experience gives you the sense that you are on one network, but really under the hood, you are connected to many networks. And that's really the user experience we wanted to create with Canton, just with respect to the movement of value. So here is, again, just examples of some of these, network of networks. So what we are doing with DTCC, or for example with iCapital, is we're introducing already 100 funds that exist on Canton. But tomorrow, when JP Morgan goes live, which is going to be its own Canton, you'll be able to settle some of these iCapital funds using JP Morgan money. So again, it's these applications that run on independent cantons, but can interoperate with one another as if they existed on one single chain. So where is Canton today? So we have been in production just for 2 years. I don't even think 2 years. We today process close to $10 trillion of value every month. Just to give you a bit of perspective, because we talked about crypto, in the last 24 hours, crypto processed 80 billion of value. We do 10 trillion every month. And the reason is that we're not going after crypto trading use cases, we're going after large institutional use cases. Just one single client on Canton is moving close to $300 billion of value every day in repo transactions in the US. And as a result of this very long execution cycle and really thinking about some of these features, we've seen a very, very fast organic growth to the network. And I think you're going to see many more very exciting announcements on new entities that are joining, but more importantly, some of these use cases and how adoption is happening. Today, Canton processes the highest number of fees a day from any network. We do about $2 to $3 million of fees being processed on Canton. This is higher than any other public chain, and we expect that to grow to 5 and 10 million within the next 12 months. So just real quick, just wanted to give a brief overview on two, a very exciting use case to kind of demonstrate why I'm very excited about what we're doing and what is the opportunity. So as I mentioned, in July, we're going to have the next set of trades, but in October, we're going to have the go live. So DTCC got an approval from the SEC in the US, a no action relief, to onboard the top 1,000 market cap companies in the United States. And they selected Canton as the first network to do that. So in October, any market participant would be able to move a US equity and a US Treasury in real time, 24/7. I can tell you that most Korean brokers are in the process of connecting to the DTCC project. I'm pretty sure we were working with every one of the major Korean brokers. And I just want to give, again, I said these institutions are the ones that are connecting, but I just want to explain why this is exciting. So the Korean market, if I'm not mistaken, is the largest retail investor in Tesla, if I'm not mistaken. But today, if you wanted to land your Tesla stock, you are beholden to your broker going through what I would call an agent lending desk in the US. And those agent lending desks take a big part of how much you would get for lending these stocks. And where I get excited is that what I think we're going to start seeing is that you're going to be able to hold your Tesla stock in your wallet, and you're going to have things like Aave or Morpho, or the equivalent of those things, where you would actually be able to pledge your Tesla stock directly to a person that would want to borrow it, where you would get directly the yield of lending those stocks. And again, like I said, this is not necessarily that it's going to be offered to you through service provider, but you as the customer would be the main beneficiary of that technology. So we're seeing today on the DTCC project already 50 software vendors that are building new applications on top of the DTCC offering, all the way from securities lending, for repoing securities, for creating, NASDAQ is building a new exchange for tokenized equities. We mentioned New York Stock Exchange. So we're seeing 50 different vendors that are going to build new applications on top of Canton when DTCC goes into production in October. And I'm extremely excited. Again, the US equity market plus the US Treasury market, if I'm not mistaken, is close to $70 trillion in size. So we keep on talking about TVLs in the billions. I think we need to readjust kind of the numbers that we as an industry are shooting for. And then, as you can imagine, today we're very excited that we have Circle, but I think that one of the things that, again, in order to have institutional adoption, and as a result of that, really good consumer benefits, is that today, although stable coins are still becoming popular and they are still being accepted in different places, they are definitely not accepted as much as banks or Visa or MasterCard or those type of networks. So having the likes of JP Morgan, but HSBC, Lloyds Bank, and now recently Visa selected Canton to build a network, a payment network on top of, having those type of institutions issue money on chain is creating a very unique opportunity. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we will share a very exciting update where one of the largest companies in the world will actually start using tokenized deposits with treasuries on Canton to start managing their treasury. So they're actually going to start managing their balance sheet on Canton in order to drive better utility for themselves. But again, I think we're also going to see a lot of very exciting consumer use cases where, again, if you just take and think about let's just imagine, and I'm just picking up, let's say Shinhan did tokenized deposit. Imagine you'll be able to pledge your Tesla stock into a lending protocol and in real time get a Shinhan money into your wallet, which you could use in real time. Those are the things that I think we're going to see in the very near future as a result of us bringing all of these assets on chain. So, it's been a long journey. Like I said, I got into crypto in 2012, 13. I left at 14 to start the company. And like I said, it's been pretty interesting cycles, a lot of assets. But I think what we're seeing is where we're entering right now is this idea of coordinated markets. We are now starting to have very interesting assets globally, and we're going to start seeing these transactions going across networks, and we're going to see these markets being coordinated in a way that we haven't seen to date. So if I want to just leave you with one thing, because I know that people need to focus on the game and listen at the same time, is that the way that we think about Canton is having this global composability, 24/7 atomic value exchange with privacy, and again, aligned incentives, how people actually get to participate in the market, is really the three components that you need in order to create a very successful global blockchain network. Thank you.
네, 유익한 강연 감사드립니다. Thank you, Mr. Yuval for sharing your valuable insights with us today. Please return to your seat. Thank you very much. 네, 여러분 다시 한번 큰 박수 보내주시기 바랍니다. 네, 유발루즈께서 이 RWA 토큰화의 미래와 함께 캔톤의 역할과 또 중요성을 또 곱집어 주셨습니다. 이 보다 효율적이고 연결된 금융 인프라의 미래를 함께 또 그려볼 수 있었는데요. 또한 DTCC를 비롯한 주요 금융기관들이 이미 캔톤과 같은 새로운 금융 인프라를 활용하고 있다는 점, 그리고 한국 기업들 또한 캔톤과의 협력을 계획해 나가고 있다는 점을 미뤄보았을 때 이러한 변화가 미래가 아닌 또 현재 진행형이라는 점도 확인할 수 있었습니다. 네, 이번 시간에는 저희는 대담을 진행해 보도록 할 텐데요. 앞선 발표를 통해서 분절돼 있던 시장과 자산을 하나의 네트워크로 연결하고 보다 효율적이고 투명한 금융 환경을 구축할 수 있다는 점을 느꼈듯이 이번 대담에서는 발표에서 다뤘던 주요 내용들을 바탕으로 보다 깊이 있는 이야기를 나누어 보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 저희가 얼추 좀 자리가 정돈이 다 된 것 같아서요. 대담에 함께 해주실 두 분을 소개해 드리도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 대담을 진행해 주실 김규진 타이거리서치 대표 그리고 유발루즈 CEO께서 함께 해주시겠습니다. 두 분을 무대로 모시겠습니다. 큰 박수 보내주시기 바랍니다.
안녕하십니까. 타이거리서치 김규진입니다. 아주 국가적으로 중요한 순간인데도 이렇게 사진도 찍어주시고 이렇게 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다. 지금 1대 0인데요. 이 세션이 끝나면 아마 2대 1로 저희가 이기고 있지 않을까 생각하고 있습니다. 아무래도 이제 유발이 미국 분이시기 때문에 오늘 대담은 이제 영어로 진행하겠습니다. Well, thanks so much for insightful speech, and I didn't know Canton was doing this for 13 years. Wow, a lot of grit in there.
Almost 12 years, not 13, almost 12.
And a big congratulations on your recent raise, $355 million. A lot of people in crypto and digital assets are quite saddened about the market situation right now, but I think you're doing an exceptional job and also really innovating and find capital markets with secure infrastructure. What does 2026 mean to you, and how is it what kind of mentioned inflection point a lot during your speeches? What's kind of your view on 2026, and what was your discussion with investors? What do you feel like about 2026?
Yeah, so our thesis, generally speaking, is that crypto networks, the way I think about a successful crypto network is like a distributed company, right? And the reason why I say that is, at the end of the day, the value of a crypto network should be, at the end of the day, as a result of the utility it generates. And it saddens me to say that when you look at most crypto networks today, they are valued like a meme stock. The valuations that they have do not match the utility that they create. And there's maybe one single example in the last few months, which is Hyperliquid. Whether you could like it or not, you could say that it's a casino or not, it's gambling or not, it actually generates revenue. And it takes that revenue and it burns tokens. So when I think about that, well, what does it look like? It looks like a public company that is generating profit and is saying, I'm going to take this profit to buy stock back. And if that were to happen, a value of a stock should go up, as long as you believe that they're going to continue to generate profit. When you look at most crypto networks today, their valuation is so disconnected from the actual dollar that gets spent on these networks. And that to me makes no sense. And it's actually a very bad outcome that we kept on convincing retail to buy these things, because what is happening right now, in my opinion, is, physics is winning, gravity is winning. Things do eventually come back to where they're supposed to be. If you made promises and you didn't deliver, guess what? It's going to go down, and it's eventually going to go down to zero, right? So having that ability for us to be very consistent, and as a result of that, unpopular, to be clear, right? A lot of the things that I'm saying right now is not usually what you would hear from a crypto founder, right? What I'm saying right now. And it has caused me to be very unpopular. If you found me on X, there's enough people that don't like me there. But it's done very well for us with investors because being consistent over 12 years and having a very, very similar narrative and very similar execution and sticking to what you think is the value proposition gives investors a lot of confidence, right? We heard people talking here about privacy and control, where 2 years ago it was all about permissionless and no privacy. And this zigzag of the industry, these changing narratives, is what you're seeing now in the market. Yeah. At some point, the consumer gets tired from the stories. Yeah. There's just so much that you can accept these stories and say, I still believe you, right? So for us specifically, being very consistent with our story, going after the same clients with the same architecture, not changing the narrative, allowed us, within the last 24 months, we almost 3x our valuation. And the reason for that is because we are continuing to execute on what we are doing. And it's 3x the valuation in a market that has been down like 40% over the last year, right? So to us, that is kind of like what have been 2026 to date. And we are extremely honored to have Andreessen lead this round, but have an incredible names like Apollo, CME, HSBC, SoFi, SBI in Japan, Hanwha in Korea. We might surprise people with more Korean investors, right? Like to us, that has been extremely exciting, but we still have a lot of work to do to execute and continue to deliver on all of these exciting projects that we're working on.
I mean, I actually agree with you that we've been, I'll use the raw word, scammed and rug pulled and then be disguised around all these narratives and unexecuted promises. So I respect what you meant. And I think that's why Canton is resonating with the capital markets. It was also very interesting to learn about, you talk about valuations. If I ask a tricky question, does that mean Canton and digital asset, I would say digital asset also has is making revenue or is preparing for commercialization?
So let's just start with just put a bit of things in perspective. Canton right now, if you look at how much dollar fees it generates annually, is trading at roughly an 8 multiple compared to the fees. Wow. I just want to put it in perspective.
Is that gas fees or?
Yeah, gas fees compared to the value of the network is roughly 8x. Now I'm just going to give you just the understanding. Cardano trades at roughly 10,000 multiple. Ethereum trades at roughly 2,500 multiple. Solana, I think, trades at roughly 1,500 multiple, just to give you a sense. So I think we're in a healthy place. Can our multiple be higher? Sure, maybe. But I'm actually okay with where it's at, right? At the end of the day, I believe that as long as we can increase the utility on the network, things will take care of themselves. Digital asset as a company is very profitable. I mean, our revenue is in the hundreds of millions of dollars already. And, it's grown, in the 3 digits for the last few years.
I think this should be known for much more because a lot of people ask me, what is the only profitable chain or project in crypto? They say Hyperliquid. I think you're really undervalued in some ways.
Well, you should look at the only 2 networks that have gone up in the last 6 months.
That is true. A bit more about blockchain networks. There's all controversies with monolithic blockchain would be a good fit for capital markets, or modular, or as you said, network of network is much more fit. What's your view on this? And do you think only one blockchain will win the market?
Do you know why GPUs became so popular for AI? Sorry, it's maybe a bit out of left field why I'm answering it. But do you know why? The reason why GPUs became the perfect answer to AI is because graphic processors, what they allow to do is run many, many processes in parallel. So the whole idea of a GPU was rather than running one core that can just run a process through it was this idea that you can run multiple cores all in parallel. And that was why, NVIDIA was like #1 in graphical processors, which when you do graphics, you can do a lot of things in parallel. Generally speaking, the world today in technology showed that having things run in parallel is just much more superior to just running things in a centralized thing. Now, Solana has done an incredible job scaling, but even Solana, during the meme craze, when Trump launched Trump Coin, ran out of capacity, right? So to think that you could just run the entire world financial system on one ledger is crazy to some extent. And it's just not connected to reality. It just doesn't work like that. And there is no financial system today that runs anything on a monolithic architecture. There isn't. So why would blockchain be the one that does it? Like, that's just, to me, insane. So the internet doesn't run on a monolith network. Matching engines don't run on monolithic networks. AI doesn't run on but crypto should. I know we think we are special, but we're not that special.
Kind of moving on, Canton is powerfully known as a chain that prioritizes and respects privacy, as you mentioned. But there's also, on one hand, blockchain purists, or I would say crypto natives or degens. They say blockchain should be permissionless, transparent. So in that sense, how would you argue with that? Because of course you say traditional banks and our financial markets would not accept such non-transparent, permissionless. But what's your kind of argument around privacy going over the transparency?
Sure. Maybe I'll pose a question to the audience, if they're all, because it's a test to see who's listening to me and who's looking at the game. So who here would be comfortable with their employer telling all of your colleagues how much you're making every month, and then also to show everyone in the world how much money you spend at any place in the world? Like, who would be comfortable that everybody would see all of their money and everything that they do with their money? Cool. So hopefully some agreed with me and some are still just watching at the game, but nobody raised their hand. And the reality is that I think that to some extent people say that, but then I would go and ask the people that are being kidnapped in France, because everybody knows their crypto holdings and know that they have a lot of money, and I would ask, would they have appreciated having privacy? And the answer is yes. But the reality is, whether we like it or not, the regulation says financial institutions must have privacy for their clients. So I actually think, on a personal level, I find it a bit ludicrous. Every one of us wants to have privacy. In some cases, we're okay not to have privacy. Sure, do I want to show everybody my NFT? I personally don't have any NFTs. But yeah, if you want to show up with your NFTs, cool. There are certain things that we want to show off, some, social status and whatnot. But there are many things that we want to have privacy. So again, I'm not necessarily like this privacy zealot. Like, I'm not this person that says everything needs to be private. But having the option to have certain things private is a good thing, right? It's not, again, you could build things on Canton that are not with privacy, that everybody will be able to see. You could do that. But you could also build things with privacy. So I actually think it gives much more optionality to the consumers. There are certain things that I will want to have no privacy, and there are certain things that I will want to have privacy. But most importantly, it actually allows these institutions that I showed on the slide to actually build something. Because today, imagine if the internet had no privacy capabilities, meaning if you wanted to build a bank connected to the internet, everybody would be able to see all of your accounts. The regulator would never allow that. So my point is, I think, like I said, on a personal level, I think it's a bit of a ludicrous discussion to be had, but really in practical terms, some of these regulated institutions, if you want them to use a blockchain, you need to be able to solve for privacy.
I'm convinced. Okay, so you have you're quite adamant on your thoughts, and I respect that. Then, in executing that, you're executing the project, you're building revenue, you're convincing institutions, and I don't believe in things that only goes well. So, what are the obstacles that you're facing today?
Oh my God, I wish everything went well. A lot have gone wrong. When I posted last week, when we posted about the round, I said, we've made a lot of mistakes. We had a lot of fails. But what I'm very proud of is that we haven't, under pressure, have caved to what could have been very easy things to do. I'll give just an example. As I said, I launched the company in 2014. In 2016, we already had our first round led by JP Morgan. We had Goldman and Investors, Citi, BNP, CME, ABN AMRO, the Australian Securities Exchange. I can keep on going. Deutsche Börse, big institutional names. This is 2016. In 2017 was the ICO boom, for everybody who remember, anybody who's been in crypto in 2017. Do you know how easy it would have been for me to write a white paper and raise a ton of money and just walk away and be rich and never deal with this? It would have been very easy. But we were very, very honest with what we were trying to build, and we didn't. We didn't launch, we didn't do an ICO. Do you know in 2020, 21, the era of pre-mines, we had even more investors, even more impressive. Now we had already success. We had people using. I could have done a pre-mine, and we didn't. And the reason we didn't is because we felt the technology is not ready. We're not ready to launch the network to do all the things that we were trying to do. And by the way, even when we launched the network, again, this is not a very typical thing for a crypto founder to do, is the founders didn't get any token allocation in our name. And the reason for that is a few things. One thing is when you work with regulated institutions, it's important to lead by example and make sure that your actions speak louder than your words. And what I mean by that is, if I say I have this big vision of changing capital markets, and I want to change the world for the better, which is what crypto have said in words all the time. But then I have this massive crypto position that I can liquidate at any given point of time. What kind of signal does it send for those that want to work with you? And therefore, we resisted the temptation of doing a pre-mine. We resisted the temptation. All of my exposure to Canton Network is through my equity in digital asset. That's it. If digital asset is successful and Canton is successful, I will, on a personal level, be successful. And I have no regrets. Because again, if you think about the investors that have invested, a big part of the reason why they have invested is due to all of these things that I said to you. Yes, it's the commercial success, but it's also them being very comfortable aligning with us ethically, right? Like they feel comfortable working with us as a result of these things. When we launched the network, we start thinking about governance. Well, how do people get comfortable running mission-critical infrastructure if someone like Yuval can just, with a magic wand, change everything? So when we launched the network, we took the entire code base, moved it to the foundation. So we don't control the code base as digital asset anymore. When we launched the foundation, it could have been very easy for me to become the chairman of the foundation. I am not the chairman of the foundation. It's DTCC and Euroclear that are the chairs of the foundation. It would have been very easy for me to make my CTO the chair of the technical part of the foundation. We are not the chairs of the technical part of the foundation. It's actually the CTO of TradeWeb. We could have been the chairs of the tokenomics committee that change and decides all kinds of things around tokenomics. We are not also there. And I think that the reason for doing that is I've looked at crypto projects over the years and I've seen a lot of people with very good intentions that eventually got blinded by money. And I just didn't want to put myself in that position because although I believe I am not that person, that is not something that I want to test myself with. right? It's not something that I wanted to even be in that position where I have all this money available to me that I can just have a bad day and just go like, it's just not worth it, right? It's just not worth it. Let's just take it and go away. So back to your start, we've made many mistakes. We've lost big projects. We failed on some projects. But I would say that what I am extremely pleased is that we've never lost our North Star, and we've stayed pretty true to it.
Personally speaking, I think Koreans have very high standards on ethics. Our regulators and our politicians get very big scrutinization on ethical issues, and I think you're going to pass with what you have just said.
Yeah,
Because it's a big courage, You're not owning a single token of what you have founded. So
yeah, and I think sometimes people ask me about the regulation here in Korea, and they're like, "Oh, Korea is not moving as fast as the rest of the world." I sometimes don't buy into these arguments. First of all, there's historical context here after the financial crisis and things that have happened that have made Korea a much more conservative country. And can it become less conservative? Maybe. But I always think that these things come from a good place of trying to protect people's money, right, and trying to give customer protection. And again, the reality is that I always prefer assuming the best and invest in these type of relationships, because like I said, what I want to happen is that in 30 years I will be able to say, look, these are some of the roots that we have planted are now shaping the global economy. And the reality is that to do these things in a safe and secure manner is not something that happens overnight. It definitely not happens because you wrote a cool white paper, Yeah. And therefore it's okay to be patient and kind of allow things to run their course. It's something that I don't personally mind.
then, when you go to the bed, what do you dream about Canton and digital asset headed to, and what's the end game for you? Are you going to launch a spaceship, or I don't know? I mean, it seemed very visionary from today's talk.
I'm actually a pretty lazy person. I'm not a big visionary. I'm one of 6 children. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I was at the right place at the right time to start a cool company. For me, I don't have much dreams beyond kind of what I'm doing right now. I enjoy coming to Korea. I wish I had more time to go running here. I like running, but hopefully next time I come in September, we'll do more of that. The weather will be better. To be honest, what I'm focused on right now is, executing on all of the things that we're doing, growing the network, and when that happens, we'll figure out what is next.
Do you have? You don't have to answer this quick. Do you have a plan to IPO?
It's a good question. So I said
the reason
before.
I ask is we Koreans want to have a part of. Maybe.
Yeah. So before this panel, I told you can ask whatever you want, and you did. So that's good. Good for you. My employees ask the same question all the time. So I'll give you the same answer I tell my employees. I think that for me as a CEO, I've never built a company with thinking, how do I exit the company? I've never had, like, a lot of times people ask you, what is your exit strategy? And my exit strategy was always build a profitable company. And they were saying, okay, but what is your exit strategy? It's like, build a profitable company. Because if you're a profitable company, you could stay private and just pay dividends to your employees and your shareholders. You could be acquired at a very attractive price, and you can also go public, right? You have all the optionality in the world. So my view is that we are going to continue to focus on how to grow ourselves and become even more profitable. We are profitable already now, but how to become even more profitable and grow the size of the company. Do I want to be a CEO of a publicly traded company? No, I'm a very private person, and being a CEO of a public company is daunting me. That being said, I think that there is something to be said that if you are the creator of what you want to become a global infrastructure, there's a lot of value in us being a public company. And at the end of the day, I am very dedicated to the mission of what we're trying to achieve, and I will always do what's the best for Canton and for digital asset. And therefore, we are, of course, being approached, and we are considering all of our options.
I'm embarrassed.
This is as good as you're gonna get.
This is so. There's a saying in Korean: "Masters answer stupid question into a very smart answer," and I do feel like a stupid one. Time is clicking. So a little bit about Korea. I know it's not your first visit. I know there's. I think on public news, Hanwha made an investment this round. How's your discussion with Korean companies? And I know we had a previous discussion. You're very excited. You believe this is one of the biggest capital markets in the world. Where is your excitement and anticipation around Korea is today?
First of all, my biggest excitement is when I'll be able to do a temple stay again.
You already did one.
Of course.
Wow.
Of course, But beyond that, I think that, like I said, if you look at the growth of the Korean investor into the U.S. equity market, it has been phenomenal. I think something like 10x over the last 3 years. It's a pretty massive growth. So, first of all, we are having very fruitful conversation. It's nice to be privileged to be the first selected by DTCC to tokenize U.S. equities. So we are already talking to pretty much every one of the major financial brokers here on how to connect to the DTCC in the U.S. And that's an easy conversation because we're the only option, right? But again, I think that I would break down the discussions with Korean entities into 3 components. One is the US, what we just talked about. The other one is that a lot of the Korean companies have overseas business outside of the US. And there's a lot of conversations with them on what are the things that we can do in other markets. So that would be like the second component of the conversation. And then there's, again, the long-term view of what can we do here in Korea. And that's why, we're going to talk to the regulators here. We're going to talk to the government here. We're going to educate, and we're going to make the investment needed because, again, we always, as you could see, take a very long-term view on the opportunity. So I would say that, the conversations with the institutions span those three type of topics.
Is there any particular story or I would say incident, good or bad, with your discussions with Korean institution? The intention is to share, maybe if you can share a message to Korean regulators or financial institutions in a positive way for us to accelerate our space.
Bad? Okay. I am so uncomfortable with selfies, and the fact that I have to take a selfie in every meeting is extremely bad for me.
How about a regular photo?
What?
Regular photo is okay?
A regular photo is like, you guys like your photos so much. But other than that, I mean, all of my interactions with Korean entities so far have been pretty incredible. I mean, again, the minister said there's no lack of knowledge and technology here, and you're seeing the excitement. Again, do I wish things move faster? Of course, who isn't? I'm an entrepreneur. I have no patience. But again, I still think that doing it the right way is more important than doing it the wrong way. And if that takes time, that's fine. So most of our interactions here in Korea have been extremely positive. There's a lot of opportunity. There's also a lot of education because Canton, as I've described, although I started this in 2014, the network have been in production for 2 years. And and the Korean market was not waiting for us. So also trying to educate a lot of organizations that made technology decisions, kind of like, hey, I understand why you've done things in a certain way because that's all you could have done with that technology, and explaining that there are now alternatives that can do things much better is already another part of the discussion. In some cases, it's an easier discussion. In some of them, it's a harder thing. But that's just natural for it to happen this way.
I think we have some limited time, so If you have any last messages for audience, or if you want to ask, open up for any questions from the audience as well.
Listen, I will repeat what I said in the beginning of my talk, which is I'm extremely excited about Korea. I think that the Korean market, like I said, on a personal level, I'm an investor in the Korean market through some ETFs in the U.S., and I'm very excited for the prospects here. I think this year I'm already going to be in Korea 3 times, which
It's your third time.
just this year.
Oh my
I think
God.
it's my 6th time in Korea, but I'm going to be already 3 times just this year. So my view is that there's quite a lot of opportunity here. We're very excited. Again, we are going to invest here long term. We're not expecting everything to happen overnight. And if there's ways for us, we have Thomas here from the foundation. We're going to be and Tegan from the foundation. If there are ways for us to help educate, please reach out. And like I said, I'm hoping that in a few years you and I will do a similar fireside chat, and we'll be able to mark to market on some of the progress. But other than that, I'm very excited, and I'm actually very humbled from the warm hospitality I get here in Korea every time I come here. Yesterday, for the first time, I tried North Korean noodles. I've had better food before, but it's nice to try new things every time, and looking forward for my next time coming here.
Well, I think both myself and the audience really enjoyed the discussion with you. Thank you so much for your discussion. Thank you very much.
Of course,
큰
thank
박수로 맞이해 주셔서 감사드리겠습니다.